Shabbat Shalom. I hope you're well and that you've had a good week. This week we are in the Torah portion called Ekev, which is Deuteronomy 7:12 through 11:25, and this is a continuation of Moshe speaking to Israel as they're about to enter the land and before he dies. And all throughout this portion, as last week, we see a continuation of the theme of Torah being a means for blessing and survival in the land. I'm just going to read a couple examples, but this verbiage is found all throughout the Torah portion. So 7 verse 12 through 13, this is the very beginning of the portion. If you do obey these rules and observe them carefully, Yahweh your Elohim will maintain faithfully for you the covenant that he made on oath with your fathers. He will favor you and bless you and multiply you. He will bless the issue of your womb and produce of your soil, your new grain and wine and oil, the calving of your herd and the lambing of your flock, in the land that he swore to your fathers to assign you. Now this is another theme that we see throughout this Torah portion, this thought of because of your fathers. And it's stated multiple times that Yahweh maintains the covenant with this people, even though they are stiff-necked and have been ever since they left Egypt, as Moshe says here. It's because he remembers their fathers and the covenant he made with them, which was to bless the offspring. And so, because he made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that is why he continues to lead and to protect the people of Israel and to dispossess the nations before them. How lucky are we that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were righteous and did the things that they did to obtain Yahweh's favor. A couple times he just wanted to give up, and in fact he even said to Moshe, of you I will make a nation greater than these. But Moshe reminded him of his character and of his name, and the fact that, if you don't protect these people, the rest of the world is going to think you just weren't able to save them and you just brought them out into the wilderness to kill them. Always highlighting the power of Yahweh's name and his character. It even says that it's not because the people of Israel were virtuous that he's bringing them to the land. It's because the wickedness of the people that live there that he's purging them out. It's his land, remember, and righteousness cannot dwell with wickedness. And so he cleans the land and purges it of those who are defiling it, and then brings in his people, as he promised on oath to his people's fathers. Now in chapter 8, verse 3, I almost read over this. I underlined it, and I kept reading, and then I thought back and I said, wait, there's more here. And this is about the manna, and this verse that we've heard how many times throughout our lives. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And the common interpretation of this is that you shouldn't rely on your physical food. You should rely on Yahweh's word. Memorizing his word, knowing his word. These are the things that will enable us to resist temptation, to stand in the face of persecution, and to survive. And I'm not arguing that that's untrue. But I think there's another deeper meaning here. Something that we can learn, and when we think about it that way, it makes more sense that the manna was given as a test in the wilderness. Otherwise, it just never made sense to me. Why was it a test? Why was it a challenge? Seems great, right? This manna's here every day. You pick it up every day. It lasts double on Friday, so you don't have to gather on the Sabbath. Why is that a test of faith? Well, it's found right here in the scripture, so I will read it. Chapter 8, verse 3. He subjected you to the hardship of hunger, and then gave you manna to eat, which neither you nor your fathers had ever known, in order to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but that man may live on anything that Yahweh decrees. So there's a couple key phrases and words here. The first being that neither you nor your fathers had ever known. So this is something new. This is not a normal source of nutrients and sustenance. It's unknown. It's unfamiliar. What they're used to is bread. To teach you that man does not live on bread, but on anything that Yahweh decrees. So if Yahweh says it, he has this substance called manna and says, you will live on this. I don't care whether you know it or not, or whether you've seen it or not, or whether you've ever recognized it as food or not. Because I said it, you will live on this. Do you trust me? So it's about more than just bread. It's about more than just physical sustenance versus his words, i.e. the scripture. But it's what he ordered. It's what he decreed. It's what he set in place, was that this was to be their sustenance. Like I said, bread is what was familiar to them. They knew it. Manna, the whole name means, what is it? They didn't know what it was. Doesn't matter. All they needed to know is that it was from God. They didn't recognize it as sustenance, but for those who had faith, they lived on it for 40 years in the wilderness. Likewise, we live on whatever Elohim, our Father, decrees for us, even if it's unfamiliar. This is why it was a test of faith. And so I think this is the deeper spiritual lesson that we can learn from the manna in the wilderness. Now in chapter 10, verse 9, we have another theme that is a recurrent theme throughout Scripture. I just wanted to talk about it again because I had a different thought about it today. I've always loved it. I've always found it so special. This is talking about the Levites and their hereditary portion. If you remember, the different tribes received different allotments of the land of Israel, with borders for each tribe, delineating the land and demarcating where they were to be. The Levites did not receive a hereditary portion. They received cities in the land belonging to other tribes in which they could live. But Scripture has said it multiple times. Yahweh is their portion. Wow. Their hereditary portion is himself, not the land. But what's the connection here? I thought the land was the whole point, right? I mean, that's why it's emphasized and repeated numerous times throughout the Torah portion. Well, what is the point of the land? The land is where he dwells among us, just like in the garden, in the very beginning. He dwelt with Adam and Eve in the land. That's why the land is so important. When we return to his land, to the land he's allotted for his children, then we can dwell in his midst. But the Levites didn't have to wait to be in the land for that to happen. By definition of their job and what it was that they had to do, especially the high priest, they are dwelling in his midst every day, in the tabernacle. And the high priest especially, when he enters the Holy of Holies, you can't get closer to Yahweh's presence than that. Even Moshe would enter in to speak to Yahweh face to face. So they didn't need the land per se, because they already were dwelling in his midst by version of what their job description was. So, short Torah portion today, at least in terms of new revelation that I got from it, but I think I found a couple of really interesting, deeply spiritually significant things. I'm sure there's more to it. And so I'm really looking forward to see what further revelation the Father gives me next year about these two themes and anything else that comes out of this portion. So I hope it's been a blessing to you. And as always, please share with me in the comments or send a personal message any of your own thoughts and revelations on this week's Torah portion. Have a blessed rest of your week, and Shabbat Shalom.